A day of reckoning for Alec Baldwin. Judge Jeanine interviewing the prosecutors bringing charges against the actor and the Rust film armorer. They are set to face 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter in the tragic death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. One of the charges could put Baldwin behind bars for a minimum of 5 years. And it looks like this interview Alec Baldwin did is coming back to haunt him.
I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
The Santa Fe County District Attorney and Special Prosecutor telling Judge Jeanine that Baldwin isn't being truthful, and they say Hutchins would be alive if he had done his job.
We definitely believe he pulled the trigger. The FBI lab report confirms that, so definitely the trigger was pulled.
All right, so his statement is not correct under any circumstance.
We don't believe it is.
Mr. Baldwin had a duty at the base level to never hold a gun and point it at a person while pulling the trigger. But he also had a duty as an actor and a producer on that set to have the bullets checked or to check them himself to make sure that they weren't live.
We believe Baldwin, as a producer, knows everything that goes on this set. And so, there was a lot of problems. There were a couple accidental discharges. There was a lot of safety concerns that were brought to the attention of management, and he did nothing about it. So this was a loose and reckless scene where safety was compromised just to save money.
The decision to charge Baldwin certainly not easy, given who he is and the media circus around the case.
Did you feel any pressure to go one way or the other?
You know, we looked at this case for a long time, and sure, there was a lot of media attention, and Alec Baldwin's an A-list actor, but again, we were just looking at the facts of the case, and again, Alec Baldwin, he is an A-list actor, and there's a lot of, hype around all that, but he isn't above the law. We don't feel public pressure. We're prosecutors. We're doing the right thing and what the facts support, and we believe it supports involuntary manslaughter.
And here's another interesting part of Judge Jeanine's interview when she asked if Baldwin was willing to work with investigators.
Did Baldwin cooperate?
Yes, he cooperated in that he did willingly turn over his phone after some negotiations with his lawyers.
And let's get Judge Jeanine's reaction after we see this one more little bit about whether he would take a plea. Watch here.
Will you engage in plea negotiations with Baldwin?
I can't comment on that at this point. It would be unethical for a prosecutor to talk about that.
All right, Judge, congratulations on getting an exclusive interview. Really powerful, very timely. What was your main takeaway?
Well, my main takeaway was that the prosecutor, Mary Carmack Altweiss, is a very straight shooter sorry to use that pun, but she is someone who's very focused on the law, focused on the facts. She knew that she was coming up against a case that will be worldwide, that is really something where it's almost as though the burden of proof will be increased with a jury in a case like this. We've seen what happens with celebrities. She's not letting that bother her. It's very clear to her that it was a set where safety was compromised. They didn't take into account the safety of the individuals. They had notice of it. He had notice of it. The armorer, who's also charged with involuntary manslaughter, she herself had discharged live rounds. So everyone knew that this was a dangerous situation. And the truth is that Baldwin lied when he said, I would never point a gun and pull the trigger. That's a lie. Based on the type of gun, it's a single action. You have to pull that trigger. And so the forensic evidence, along with, and I don't know if there's any video of his actually shooting Halyna Hutchins. Plus, they now have the third defendant, who was a guy by the name of Dave Halls, who was a second armorer, who has agreed to testify. He's pled guilty to the unlawful use of a weapon, and he will testify against Baldwin and Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Now, she was a very inexperienced armorer. She never should have been on the set. They did it for money, and a life was lost as a result of it. And she had repeated notice there was a problem. Now, I also want to make one point. I've watched a couple of interviews. Everybody's saying, we don't know where that live round came from. You know what? Is it relevant? Maybe yes, maybe no. It depends on the jury. What's relevant is what Alec Baldwin did and how he handled a gun on a set where they knew there were problems in live rounds, and where he used that gun and pulled the trigger at a human being in the prime of her life, the mother of a son who is now dead because of his actions.
I have one question about that. When he did the interview with George Stephanopoulos and said, "I never pulled the trigger," it was interesting because he did interviews initially after she died, and he never said at that time, "I never pulled the trigger." I imagine that if that had been true, he would have said that initially, like, "I don't know what happened. I didn't even touch it."
You know, I think what happens in these cases is, you know, everybody has a group around them of friends, of people who think they know how to handle it, what to say, or defense attorneys who are saying, you know, you can use this as an excuse, and people listen to it. Keep your mouth shut, and believe me, the more you say, the better for me, when I used to be a prosecutor. Yeah. But if you're going to lie, it's not going to help you out under any situation.
We'll take it around the table. Comment or question or comment?
Yeah, I think it really is important to find out how that live round got there. That's the biggest question, because what if it was deliberate, right? He didn't... You have to understand, as bad as this was, there was no intent to kill this woman. He didn't say, "I'm going to..."
He's not charged with intent.
I know, but my point being is they need to find out how that bullet got in there, because what if that was intentional? The bullet was put in there intentionally.
But it is his intervening action that created the death.
What did he do?
He picked up a gun
that he thought had a blank in it.
Yeah, I don't care what you think. Anyone who's got a gun, Greg, who is taking a gun on a set where he is charged, remember, as an actor and a producer, a man who knows it's not safe, for him not to look at that gun and decide for himself whether it's safe, that would be like you saying to me, "Here, Jeanine, here's a gun, and there's no problem with it. It's cold." And I go out on the Avenue of the Americas, I pointed at someone and pulled the trigger and say, "He told me it was a cold gun." But the truth is,
that's not at all like this.
No, yes, it is. Once you handle a gun, it's your obligation to follow the rules of safety. That's why we have gun training.
So even though he assumes that he could be tried for manslaughter if somebody deliberately put a live round in his gun.
Involuntary manslaughter, because he pulled the trigger and pointed the gun.
Okay.
And he was responsible for what was going on the set, and he had advance notice.
I agree.
He had advance notice.
I think there is a large chance he ends up in prison over this, but he's got 8 kids.
So what?
What do you mean, so what? I was gonna say that maybe it's a relief to be in a minimum security prison, Judge, when you have 8 kids. Back off, okay? This is proof that we live in a video game. A hardcore leftist who has condemned Republicans, the NRA, saying that the NRA has blood on their hands every time there's a mass shooting, ends up with blood on his hands after killing a young woman with a handgun. And again, not intentionally, but it's careless, and careless matters. And that goes back to the thing that I said at the beginning when this happened. It was such a stupid decision to hire this woman, whether it's nepotistic because of her dad or because she was edgy. She was hyphenated. She had tattoos.
Oh, she was cheap.
She's cheap, but it was a stupid path because NRA instructors are ready and they're able to assist, but they've demonized the NRA so much they don't do that. And that if you had somebody there on the set, you would have probably prevented this from happening. But she, they think that they thought, oh, this is great. This is so interesting. I also wonder what would have happened if this was an outspoken conservative and not an outspoken liberal celebrity. There would be no kid gloves. There'd be no empathy for the other side. On this show, we actually express empathy, not just for the family, for the victim, but we know that this is the worst experience of his life. Yeah. He actually killed a person. So it's like, but they would not afford us the same luxury if it was one of us.
Jesse?
Yeah, Jessica, you're fine.
I don't think Alec Baldwin. I don't think Alec Baldwin can go to trial. If they let him cut a plea, I would cut that plea in a heartbeat. He is probably dumb enough to take the stand in his own defense and would get rocked on cross. This thing could be televised. It could wreck his entire career. He's looking at 5 years if he gets convicted. And he's got a lot of kids, and he's got a lot of bills. He needs to go back to acting. Because once you're before the trial or during the trial or after sentencing, your earning power is shot. And he already unloaded all this pricey real estate to settle the case civilly. So if I was his lawyer, I would say, let's settle if they let us settle. But his lawyer, this guy's name's Luke Nickus, he got named to 40 under 40, hot lawyer list. He's young, he's hungry, he's super talented, wants to make a name for himself, but he's an art litigator. Like, he looks after stolen Van Goghs and forgeries. So this is a case he's never had to handle before. I'm a little bit worried about that. I think the honorable move is to take a plea if they give it to you and get on with your life and say you're sorry and that's it. But I respect this DA. I last year said this DA was not going to indict. I didn't think she had it in her, and she has it in her, and she treated this guy Baldwin like a Joe Schmo. And I have a lot of respect for that. I think if it does go to trial, she'll get a conviction.
By the way, the maximum sentence is 6.5.
6.5. It's a long
So
time.
you add the involuntary manslaughter to the gun charge.
Long time.
Wow. All right, Jessica.
I agree with everything that's been said. I, too, was wondering about how the live round got there, just because it's an interesting point about the set, right? The set where union workers were walking off, right, saying that it's too unsafe here. I think 2 separate crews had done that. I think it's really interesting that Baldwin declined to have the gun checked by this armorer who wasn't experienced. It was only her second job, but he took the word of the AD/second-in-command armorer, this David Halls, to say it's a cold gun, no problem. That's on him. I wonder also, I mean, actors are so hungry for producer titles, right? This is one of the things in negotiations with their contract that they want their name. I wonder if that's going to change from this, if you want this kind of liability as well on top of it. And I was struck by, I was listening to a gun safety expert talk about this, and he said just because it was an accident doesn't mean it isn't a crime.
Yeah.
And it's something we don't talk about. We see guns in movies constantly. And I think that people just get so casual about it, that these accidents can happen. And I know that it has been a long time since something like this did, but I wonder how people who are planning out the next film are feeling about this right now in terms of how seriously people are taking it.
Judge, incredible interview.
Yeah, congratulations.
And where else will you be tonight? You're going to be on primetime?
I'm on primetime.
Okay.
Then I'm on Hannity.
All right.
At Cape.
That's what, when you get a big interview, you got to keep working. You got to keep working. All right, there's much more from Judge's sit-down interview with Alec Baldwin prosecutors. You can watch the full interview right now at foxnews.com.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.